Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
Welcome one and all. It's the Books That Make You show, and I'm your host, Desiree Duffy. And today we're talking about books that make you exact the perfect revenge and spread an important message for women's empowerment through fictional storytelling. Yeah, this is going to be a fun show. Now, the great thing about fiction is that it can be used to spread messages. It can be used for allegory and metaphor and to get the word out about something that is near and dear to our hearts. And by reading about characters who find their strength and they find their power, well, we can feel empowered ourselves. And this is the case with a novel called The Perfect Revenge, The Dragonfly Rises. Now, this book is different than some of the other ones we've had on the show because it was written under a nom de plume. WilD is the alias of the author, W-I-L capital D. And the book is part of a series that follows Zoey as she becomes this empowered fighter, and she rights the wrongs that were committed against her. Now, since this book is written under a nom de plume, we are joined by Jennifer Thomas and Bill Hayes, who worked with the author to develop it. Now, the ultimate goal of this person, this mystery person behind the pen, was to be supportive and empowering to women. And that's what The Perfect Revenge is all about. Bill Hayes is a best-selling author and ghostwriter with the gift for adding historical context and artistic flair to almost any subject matter. And Jennifer Thomas is an award-winning writer, author, designer, editor, and publisher. And they are part of a team who help bring authors' stories to life and bring their books to life. Bill and Jennifer, hi, welcome to the show.
Hello, it's nice to be here.
This is going to be interesting because usually I just have one person. I just have one author. And in this case, you helped this author pen this amazing book. So let's start and tell us about this. This is a book series. The Perfect Revenge is a series, and it centers around Zoey, and she's empowering herself and hopefully other women too. So can you set the stage a little bit for the series?
Go ahead.
All right.
Since it's a woman's empowerment.
It is a women's empowerment, and it's based off a conglomerate of a lot of real stories that the author knew about people who have so many struggles in their childhood, you almost wouldn't believe it. And you might say this fiction is not believable, but it is, because there are a lot of people that go through a lot. And it is also possible to build yourself back up from that and get healing and become strong and become successful and, fight back. And then in turn, empower yourself. And like you said, maybe down the line, start empowering others. So that's sort of what we're looking to do, including not just empowering others in the series, but others in real life. So that's,
yeah. Because your main character, she goes through a lot, doesn't she?
Yes.
Tell us, we don't want any spoilers, but give us the setup. Tell us about her growing up, her childhood, and what happens to her.
I'm going to tell you that she loses both her parents, and she at least is blamed for both of their deaths.
You learn that on page 1.
Yeah, you learn that on page 1, that she killed her parents. So now she's already in a bad state, and then is raised by her cruel Uncle Max, who's, narcissistic and has a lot of personality defects, to say the least. So you can imagine that's a recipe for a horrific upbringing.
And the author has been involved in foundations and so forth that have helped women that have had problems like this, just like this, and some even worse. So, it's a case of, like Jimmy Buffett always says, fictional facts and factional fiction, because even though the story is so strong and the things that happen to Zoey are so powerful, they're all based in things that the author and we have known about real people.
And having, because some people might wonder, why does her childhood have to be so horrible? But it means so much more when you see her overcoming these setbacks. The worse it is, the more she has to overcome, and the more that it really is inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the thing too, is sometimes the truth can be more devastating than the fictional things that we write. So you, in a way, Zoey is a bit of an amalgamation of real people, real women who have just come back from just devastating and incredible adversity.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
So tell us why it's important for WilD to spread this message. What is the underlying reason for this book to be written this way?
Well, that's a very good question. WilD is an interesting character. And I am going to say, at least confess, that he is a man.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. So, he's so passionate about this message, but he realizes he may not be the perfect face of women's empowerment. And he wanted to create a character who would be the perfect face of women's empowerment and that would inspire people. He also went through a lot of trauma in his youth, and he watched his mother suffer. Mm-hmm. And he realized he suffered because it was his mother suffering and everything she went through. And then, like I said, he got involved in organizations and helping other women. And he just believes in women. I mean, he really does. I've been his project manager for a long time, and he's so sincere. And he really, really wants to change the world. And that may sound like a big goal, but that's his goal. I mean, he's thinking that big, which is amazing.
And that's really applaudable. I think sometimes that men or any person who doesn't necessarily fit into a specific demographic feels that they can't and should not be the face of that. Right. Take the example of American Dirt, for example, the novel that's gotten a little bit of heat because it's talking about the plight of immigrants, but then the woman who wrote it wasn't necessarily an immigrant. But then at the same time, it's also important for any writer or any creative or any storyteller to kind of slip into somebody else's skin and tell other people's stories too. So sometimes you need both things, right? Exactly.
The interaction with people that have suffered many of the things in this book was really, really important. And like I said, we were touched by them throughout, and it really helped the book to come alive. Yeah,
we actually contacted some and did interviews and got them to write some passages about what they went through.
Yes.
Which we use, as fodder at the beginning, because you really do need to get in that mind. And it's interesting because I work with a lot of authors, and a lot of them have been advised by coaches not to write a character that is not them, like even a character of a different race or something. Like only write what you know, and that's presumptive to do that. So it's a tricky thing. We had a team looking at this, so we made sure women looked at it, sensitivity readers, the whole thing, because you want to make sure you're representing the people properly.
Sure. And there is a bit of a trigger warning too attached to this book because it does deal with some very heavy topics and sexuality, drug abuse, etc. So people should be aware of that before they get too far into it.
Yeah,
correct.
Yep.
What are some of the big takeaways that you feel people will get out of this book?
Yeah, that's a great question, but I don't want to give away too much because there's a lot of different messages in there.
Inspiration has to be pretty much number one. It's like anybody that's feeling a little down, having a few problems here and there, and you read this and you see that this is an ordinary person too. This isn't, a Marvel comic or anything. This is an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And to see her be able to build herself up with help. So you have the combination of somebody, with the bootstraps, yet having a support team that develops. It's not like, she just gives a call to the family or anything. She has a support team that develops. And that's that's really strong, and that's really, really important.
And I said it before, but one thing we learned from that foundation as well is that humans are amazing and they can heal from a lot of trauma. And some people might be like, that much trauma, forget it. Just it's not possible, but it is. And if it's you can, if you're really ready and commit yourself to doing that.
Yeah, and I really like that message of hope, because I think there are a lot of people who feel like the world's given up on them, that they can't come back from whatever it is they went through. And like what you were saying, when you develop that support group around you, and it takes time to do that, just like it took time for Zoey to get to that. And again, I don't want to give too much away now. But it really was because of the network that she was able to develop around her to get her to that point.
It was, but also, you have to reach that point of deciding you're not going to be a victim. And you may need to wallow for a while and feel sorry for yourself. And you have lots of good reasons to, or self-medicate with drugs or something, and that happens to people. But sometimes it saves their life because they need to reach a point where they're ready to be able to face the truth and handle it.
That's an important part of
a really important
the
message.
Psychology in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't have to get too far into the nitty gritty of the psychology, but there are different stages that people go through. And I do think, again, sometimes people, then they feel guilty, because if they then do something that compounds their situation, now they feel, oh, I deserve this. I made this mistake. I turned to drugs or alcohol, or I put myself into a situation, when the reality is that's what a lot of women and men too go through when they're dealing with this type of abuse.
That is absolutely right. And we do address that as well, about self-forgiveness, which is a very important message.
Yeah. So let's talk about the craft of writing a little bit.
Wait, can I add one thing? I do want to know that this book is also fun and exciting. Oh, yeah. Like, it sounds very heavy when we're talking about it, but there's a lot of action and excitement, and it's sexy, and there's a lot going on in between all of this. So I just want to
James Bond stuff and Bourne Identity stuff, and
so I want to throw that out there.
Cool stuff in there. This book, and well, I'll let you ask the next question about the craft of writing and that, but I do want to talk about how this book and others things that we've done just develop a life of their own as you're doing it, and this one definitely did. Did. It just garnered a life of its own.
Well, I love the way this book series too, it evolves as you go. And there is an underlying romance aspect to it. And like you said, she's a bit like a Laura Croft, or I think you've used the term a female version of 007 in the past, because of, how she develops her skill set and everything, which is a fun read too, because it's not following specifically just one genre.
Correct. Yes, exactly. It has a lot of genres intertwined. And while it is about women's empowerment, I mean, you like the book. I mean, men, I'm not saying that men wouldn't like the book, I mean, the author loves it. He loves it,
Yeah.
So it's really hard to pigeonhole this book into one specific genre.
Yeah. So what was it like working on a project like this? And maybe I'll back that question up just a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about how you guys work, especially to the novice who might not be familiar with ghostwriting and editors and book development. Can you kind of explain that a little bit for us?
Sure. I started as an editor, but sooner rather than later, I got into, basically I was managing the whole project, because the writer didn't know about ghostwriters, designers, or publishing, or whatever it is, right? So on this project, we've sort of developed a system, where everyone on the team uses their strengths, and we gather the story. And, I was thinking about this today, because we do ghostwriting for a lot of nonfiction. But nonfiction, the story is finite. In fiction, you have infinite possibilities. So you could keep changing the story or adding to it forever, which sort of happened.
I think I wrote this book 6 times.
Because you're, like you said, it evolves in life. And we could add this in and add this element. And it did come together, and we started off, we were going to do 3 books. It's now going to be at least 4 books because we end up dividing because there was just so much material that we developed by continuing to delve deeper and deeper into Zoey and into this story. So anyway, with that in mind, we started off like we would with a nonfiction, interviewing the author about his story, and he's, and certain key points that, he really wanted, just like we would nonfiction. But some things were open gaps where we all worked as a team to go, okay, how could this all fit together? So it was really fun and interesting.
It started off pretty crazy because the author, the first meeting, he has easels and bulletin boards and scraps of paper and literally napkins with notes. And it has this whole room full of all this stuff. And it's like, this is going to be the story. Okay. Why not?
As writers, and even when I'm an editor, I never know what kind of writer I'm working with. Some might have an outline, but many of them don't. And they just and then when I ask them to fix one thing, they add this whole storyline. And I'm like, but now what? So you kind of learn how to work with each author because everyone has such different styles. And then you learn what works for, trying to get the project to completion with each type of author, So this was the same situation, basically.
Oh yeah, this was this was very interesting for the whole process, really, but fun as well.
Yeah, I can tell you guys had fun with this. You guys are.
Oh, we always do.
Oh, yeah, because it's kind of fun because you get to make it up, and so everyone's brainstorming like, oh, what if we had this? Or what if we had this? Just like in a movie, right? I imagine in movie writers' rooms and stuff, they do that.
Oh yeah.
The writers' room. So it was kind of like that, and yeah.
He had a lot of, again, without giving away too much, but I did say it gets kind of James Bondy, Jason Bourne-ish, and there's a certain amount of the book that takes place in a country outside of the U.S. where a lot of interesting things go on, and it's like I'm reading some of this stuff. I'm saying that doesn't go on there. I mean, they actually have like automobiles there, so we have to change that. So anyway, the point is, you talk about going into history and this and that. Even with a fictional book, I kind of put myself in that country and
do the fact checking and do the research.
Short of flying in there, it's like, okay, this is what's happening there. This is what we can do. This is how we can craft this. And also we had a wonderful time with every time zone on the globe. And then during daylight savings time, it's like, oh, talk about doing the math.
Oh, and then we had to go back.
Like, wait a minute, if it's this time, during daylight savings time in the U.S., but it's like,
well, and I don't know if you've had a seminar dealing with this, but now with COVID in 2020, we had to go back and redo our whole timeline they wouldn't be in 2020
right
post-COVID because that wouldn't be real, and
exactly.
So it created some problems for us right at the end there.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I applaud you for both keeping that realistic aspect. And that is to kind of dig into what you do usually. I don't know if there's a proper way to always work with an author. But like you were saying, a lot of times you're working on nonfiction or memoirs. But in this case, you're still fact checking. And Bill, that's something that you're really good at, is getting into the historical context, right?
Yeah, you have to, and even the present and so forth. It's like, this country that we're dealing with there, they have certain specific things going on, and you have to do this and that because people know, and if you start blowing the credibility on little things, then the big stuff also suffers. So, no, there's a lot of details in this book, and they're all right. So.
Well, that sounds like a challenge. Go ahead and fact check me.
Right. Turn on the Western movie and see the airplane. Now it's like.
So for people who, and you might be inspiring people right now too, because I'm sure there's a lot of individuals out there, probably people who like to read, or maybe they have an inkling of a story, or they want to get part of their personal story out there, but they just don't know even the first steps. They might not know that people like you even exist. So what would you like to say to somebody who might be thinking of writing down their memoir or putting together a story with a team like yours? What suggestions would you give to them?
That's a great question. I would definitely suggest to them to talk to somebody like myself or a publishing consultant who can refer them to the resources that they're going to need, because they usually don't even know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And might start trying to do one thing and go, well, I was trying to just upload it to Amazon, from my scrap of paper. You know what I mean? There's so many steps in between. And it is important to consult with professionals and figure out what you're doing so that you are able to do it and do it most efficiently. But also I would advise them to start writing or start an outline,
Right. If you have an idea, it doesn't matter what it is. If you have the idea and you're really passionate about it, as in the case of WilD there, and some of our other authors, if you get passionate about it and you really want to see it, it doesn't matter what it is, work on it, do it, talk to people like us, and it doesn't matter what it is.
And I would say, and don't self-edit right up front. Just write everything down.
Write everything down.
Like, just let it flow out of you, because it can always be fixed later. But people who get hung up on trying to type the perfect words, you're never going to get it out. Just get the story out. The story is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. There are professionals who can help you with the presentation, how to tell it, how to edit it, but if you have that story inside you, get that, or your life story inside you, get the story on the paper, even if it's not written the way you want it written yet.
Yeah, I think that's really critical, because I hear that a lot from people who they don't quite understand that a writer a lot of times is the creative, and there are editors there for a reason, especially first-time authors who are like, oh my God, I used the wrong syntax, or my punctuation is off. I'm like, who cares? Don't mess with that. You still need your developmental edit or your content edit first.
Exactly. And and I have writers, they ask me the rules and I say, I'll tell you, and it's fine, but somebody else can fix it. Like, let's get the story. Like, don't even worry about it. Especially someone doing their life story or something. If they want to be a professional writer, it might help for them to be able to write it cleanly. But if you're writing your own life, don't worry about it at all. It's the story is the most important thing, like you just said.
Yeah. And I think, too, because of the fact that you have this team, if you look at any book that's published, there's a team. That's what a publisher does. And it's so great that we have so many self-published and indie authors nowadays because they have the tools online to do that. But they forget that, I'm not just one person out there doing it, or I'm one person and one editor. It's like, you probably need a few editors or different types of editing. And I think that's a misconception.
Oh, it definitely is. And a lot of people, like you mentioned, developmental editing, they need that, I used to have people approach me and say, well, I just want a light copy edit. And I was like, no. No, I can't read something and not give you my feedback and help try to make it great. And that's what you need to do first, is look at the content and then the style and then the copy editing. There's so many different types. A lot of people think it's just about fixing commas, and that's not it at all.
Exactly. So, and you guys have worked with so many different writers and even celebrities too. There's probably some names that you can't mention because I'm sure there's NDAs out there.
Yes, exactly. We have a stack right here.
Do you have anything that you can tell us? Any juicy morsels or experiences that you might want to share about some of the processes that you've gone through with some of the authors you've worked with?
I will tell that sometimes celebrities or people who want a book about themselves can be narcissistic. So we've had quite a few egos that blew up over one tiny wrong word choice in the manuscript. And we've learned to be so careful and also decide who to get involved with at that point. And if they start showing those signs early on, it's like, you know what, this is not going to work.
No, we learned that.
So we do have some good stories of that we can't tell, but they were really extreme, and even like if you're narcissistic, let's say you don't have as much education and don't have the vocabulary, they get really angry if we use a word that they didn't know. This has happened several times.
We have a list.
We have a list of words that we're like, we're not allowed to use
We
that.
joke about it because it's not like odd words,
No,
it's like, and
Well,
I
we
mean,
would consider
everybody's
them.
vocabulary is a little different. I understand that, but there's some words that we use like every day,
Right.
and
almost
we'll
without
say-
exception, they've said, I don't want that word used because I don't know it.
right.
Even if we tell them what it means and say this is the perfect
Right.
word, I mean,
It's
very rarely do they let us use it. It's like, no.
so then when we use it in conversation or something,
Yeah.
we look at each other and go, can't say that.
Don't tell
Can't
them.
say
Don't tell them. So that's very interesting, though. I find, they want to enjoy their book and understand it.
Sure.
So I think that,
Sure. There's always synonyms for words. So it's like, okay, if you don't like that one, no problem.
okay.
Find another one. That's what
Find another
thesaurus is
one.
for. Yeah.
So, but that's been very interesting because it's something I've never dealt with when working just with writers, because usually they're very, very into words and they've written the words they want, And if I suggest something else with a slight nuance, even if they don't know it, they're like, oh, that's interesting. That's the perfect word. Let's go.
Mhm.
I learned something. But
Yeah.
someone writing their life, it's a different mindset.
Sure. And I'll take this opportunity to give a plug as well to the upcoming Book Fest, which is on October 24th, because you both are going to be there and you're going to be on a panel discussion, actually on the 25th, I should say, Sunday the
Okay.
25th, called My Precious. And that's the exact thing we're talking about when writers get precious about their writing and being able to let go a little bit.
Love it.
Yes, I'm looking forward to doing that one with him.
Yeah.
But he might have suffered from that himself
Oh.
when we met.
So tell us what enjoyable experiences. What do you enjoy the most about working with authors and writers like you do?
Oh man, I love seeing the joy and satisfaction at the end and saying, wow, this is so amazing. And it's because of you, because you helped and because of the teamwork. And it really is a team project. And then they send like positive reviews that they got. And, it's just, it's so satisfying because this is their dream.
Right. It's
You
bringing
know?
their dream to life.
that's
It's bringing their story to life.
Yeah, if you're bringing
idea
their
to
life to life or their story to life or something they wrote, you're polishing it up and it's so satisfying. I mean,
It is. We have a couple currently that we're working with, and it's so much. It's fun. It's fun to be able to send away the stuff and say, oh, here's another chapter in that, and then they're all excited. No, that's really good, and I really appreciate because we don't just take it over and add things. It's like, okay, your idea would lend itself to developing this other character and doing, what a great idea, this and that. And then we send it to them, say, okay, write something about this character, if he's, going to be a good whatever.
Right. We give them
It's
homework
like,
or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, okay,
fun with that.
have him in a good scene, a fight scene or something. It's like, and then they come back with, that worked out really well. So it's fun.
I want to say one more thing. Like I recently edited a book with someone. She was writing about, she has a special needs child and about their family to help other people. And now the book has come out to like rave reviews and she is helping people. And she sends me all of them. And they're like, this book changed my life and is helping me deal with my special needs kid. And every time I just start getting teary eyed and I'm so happy. And she's like, thank you so much, and it's a really, really gratifying something, especially when they have a larger mission like this book and that book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool that you're part of that. You're part of bringing all these stories to life. That's just got to be an incredible feeling for you both.
It is.
We have a lot of fun projects going on.
Yeah.
So tell us, where can people find out more about both of you and what you do if they want to explore a ghostwriter or development editor project with you? Where should they go?
Yeah. So we have a website called Beyond Words Ghostwriting, but it also has a page with my editing services, which is Beyond Words Editing. But we just have that one site that has our ghostwriting, editing services, design services, our past projects, our bios, everything. So they should definitely go there to find out how to contact us and what we do.
Excellent. And where can people go to find out more about The Perfect Revenge, The Dragonfly Rises, as well as other books in the upcoming series?
Yes. Well, definitely go to our website, theperfectrevenge.com. And also follow us on social media at The Perfect Revenge on Instagram and on Facebook. So, yeah.
Excellent. And the book's on Amazon and
everywhere.
all those regular places.
Yeah. Anywhere you could think of, I hope.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Jennifer, Bill, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been not only an insightful conversation, but fun too. I love talking with fellow people within the industry too about their craft. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really wonderful, and it inspired me about our job.
Yes.
Gave you a little bit of inspiration.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I applaud you guys for everything that you do to help writers tell their stories, get these books, get these important messages out there. You guys are doing good work. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching on the Books That Make You show. Again, my name is Desiree Duffy, and you can find out more about us on our website. That's booksthatmakeyou.com. And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can check out past episodes there. Plus, we're always giving away books and doing bookish contests and having lots of fun within our newsletter. So subscribe to that as well. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.